My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to talk about the damage or the effects that can happen if you are in a long-term, abusive, maybe possible narcissistic type of relationship. And this is a continuation of last week's show. And in that show, we talked about how good, caring, loving, successful people can sometimes end up in very abusive, difficult relationships. So let's define abusive and difficult relationship. So if you are a conscientious person, an agreeable person, and those are two personality traits that we talked about last week, you will tend to overly compromise with people. You will be overly responsible for the health of the relationship. And it sounds like a good thing, right? Who wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody like that? But the problem is, if you are with someone who is antagonistic, narcissistic, maybe somebody from the cluster B personality disorders, there's 4 of them. We'll go over that at another time. That's not for this week's show. But if you decide to do that, and for some people it makes sense, right? That person could be your mother, your father, somebody else in your family. It could be, your work, where you can't find another place of employment that makes you more money. So sometimes it's you would maybe want to manage the situation instead of go no contact. But if you do this, you will live in a very stressful, chaotic, unpredictable, invalidating, neglectful probably, and definitely a critical environment. And in order to keep the peace, your needs are going to have to shrink because the other person probably doesn't care very much. And that means your partner's needs, they're always going to take center stage. It's good for you to know this. It's going to be very stressful. The stress that you feel is going to be significant. It's going to be prolonged, ongoing, repetitive, and possibly permanent. Why permanent? Because somebody who has the personality traits that we're going to speak about, typically they have a personality disorder. Whether that's determined or not doesn't matter. If they're showing the traits, that's all you have to know. Most therapists or mental health clinicians don't believe somebody with a personality disorder can improve. Now, I, on the other hand, don't believe that. I have seen people make great changes in their life. However, they have to want to make changes in their life, and that's the problem. So do people with personality disorders change? Right, only if they want to, but that's for another show. Let's assume for this show that this situation for you is going to be permanent. In order to stay in this situation, you're going to have to try to manage, you're going to try to cope, maybe try to avoid or stop the other person's basic personality traits. But that's going to be mostly impossible to do. So let's go over some of those traits and you'll see what I'm talking about. People like this tend to be emotionally unstable. They have fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. They tend to be highly critical of themselves and others, tend to be hostile, angry, paranoid, suspicious. They just don't trust people. Now, you can't build up trust capital with them because you may have done 10, 15, 20 things that show you to be a trustworthy person. You may have been with them for 1 year, 10 years, 5 years, 50 years. And you're still at that baseline that you've never built up any trust capital with them because they're still basically suspicious people who don't trust. You're looking at somebody with low self-esteem. They're going to blame people. They're going to blame you. Why? Because they can't take responsibility for themselves. Why? because they have low self-esteem, so they can't take that on. They can't be criticized without throwing it back out at somebody. They're going to have unchanging dysfunctional patterns. Unchanging. That's the part you have to, well, actually dysfunctional, you have to remember that too. So that's going to be very difficult. They're going to have little to no ability for conflict resolution, meaning that if you have a disagreement, an argument, anything, it probably will never be fully resolved. They're still going to hold it back to be able to use it for the next time there's a disagreement. And they use it, and it tends to build up in terms of resentment. So we have to look out for that as well. So what's the possible damage, the possible effects on a person long term if you're dealing with a person like this? Now again, it could be family, friends, a chosen romantic partner, could be somebody at work, whatever it is. Let's take a look at the damage. 3 major things. And the first one I'm going to tell you, you're not going to hear from anybody else. So let's listen up on this one. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be very hungry. And it's not something that food is going to be able to make better. Why? Because there's a good possibility you're going to be hungry to hear things that you are never going to hear. I'll give you an example. I have a client that shall remain nameless. Her mother died when she was about, I think it was 100 or 101. And she was always looking or wanting to hear her mother say that she loved her. And she wanted to hear that her whole life. And she visited her at the hospital a little bit before she died. And she was driving away. And she said, no, today's the day. So she drove back to the hospital. And she looked her mother in the eye. And she said, I love you, Mom. Do you love me? And her mother said, I'm quite fond of you. And I have been over the years. You know, you have to understand that that's a possibility, is that people don't change. I tried to talk to my father when he got older about some of the things that happened to him as a child. And he hung up on me like 2 or 3 times. Like, it never happens. Like, it just, now part of it's my fault. If I was in my 20s and I had the same thought processes I have now, maybe he would have bent a little bit and talked to me about some of his early childhood, but honestly, I doubt it. He was actually softer when he got older. So if you're expecting to hear things, you're going to be hungry for a long time, and expect to be, because you probably are not going to hear them. Let's continue. You're going to be hungry to be listened to. You're going to be hungry to have a real give and take conversation. You're going to be hungry to be respected. You're going to be hungry to have somebody think the best of you instead of the worst. I can go on. Let's go to number 2. You're going to experience some PTSD symptoms. One of them is going to be hypervigilance, because you are going to be scanning them. You're going to be scanning the environment to see when the next time you're going to be either physically or emotionally hurt or abused. And so you're going to look to see if that's going to happen. So that scanning of the environment is definitely a symptom of PTSD. You're going to be walking on eggshells. Did you say the right thing? Did you not say something that you should have said? When they came in the door and they were a little angry, are they going to turn that anger towards you? We don't know. One of the best books I've ever read is right here. Stop Walking on Eggshells. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that, we're not going to go over that today. But you will experience some trauma symptoms. You may go through all four. Let's go over them now. So you might want to fight. You might want to fight back. They said something mean, you're going to say something mean back. You're going to make your point. Again, they don't have much ability for conflict resolution. So arguing is just going to amp you up, amp up them. It doesn't work. So that's a fear response that's just not in your favor. Flight, you can run away. You can leave for a little while just to avoid the situation. You can do that. But that is just temporary because now you're coming back to the same situation again. And so it's mildly helpful, only in the current time, but not overall. It's not a fix. So let's look at the other ones. You can freeze. Freezing means that you basically just stay there and take it. And you figured, well, at some point their anger has to go down if you just let them get it out. They'll yell themselves out. You know, they'll be abusive enough. They'll say enough bad things. They can't think of any more to say. And that usually doesn't help at all and doesn't do anything for your self-esteem, especially because you're not making boundaries and your self-esteem is definitely going to go down because of that. So the fourth trauma response would be is to fawn, meaning that you just give in and you just go, okay, whatever you say, that's correct. Whatever you think, that's fine. And you just kind of go along with it. You go with the flow, and then you go about your life when you're on your own and you do your own thing. We see this with romantic partners. People do this. We see people do this with their family, right? I know people that are afraid to talk to their family about certain things. They go, they see their family, they talk to them a little bit, but they don't talk to them about anything major. And then when they leave, they go and live their life the way they want to. I'm not saying yes or no to that. I'm just saying that that is a trauma symptom that will probably appear if you're dealing with people who are very difficult and antagonistic and probably narcissistic. Let's move on. The third one would be cognitive dissonance. Now, there's really two definitions to this, so we'll give you both. So the first one is that when you have a belief and then your action is not going along with your belief. And so it causes dissonance in you, and it makes you feel bad, it makes you feel depressed, it makes you not like yourself. So let's talk about this. Let's give an example. So an example could be, maybe you're a very successful person, like we talked about earlier, and you do good in every area of life, but you're with this person or family member, and you give in all the time, and you're not acting like yourself. You're not authentic. You're not being truthful. You are not living up to who you think you are as a person. Well, on the one side, your belief is that you're a person who's a go-getter. You have self-esteem. But are your actions indicating that at all? Probably not. So you go to bed every night going, who am I? What am I? What's going on? I don't like myself. So that's one type of cognitive dissonance. Let's talk about the word lie, right? Being untruthful. I think we can all agree that lying is a bad thing. It's negative. If you're religious, lying is a sin. But what if you're in a relationship where you get punished emotionally, physically, spiritually, every time somebody disagrees with you, but you've made the decision to keep that relationship going? Do you tell the truth? Do you not say something? Do you change what you think a little bit? Do you go along with the program to keep the peace? So on one side, we have your belief. Your belief is that truth is important. Truth is a virtue. Truth is a value. And then we have you. And your actions, you're not doing that. You know, I was thinking about this week, because I have a lot of what I would call good friends from my past, and we still talk. And it's funny, we're on these Zoom things, I guess you call it, and I get messages all the time, and you know, they send pictures, and you know, it's kind of fun. And every single time, it's so funny, they're always like on a boat somewhere, spending a lot of money, smoking cigars and all that, and I don't think it ever occurs to them that I came from a poor family. Like, there's never any thought about how sometimes, that's why I'm not going to name names, but they're very condescending to people who are poor. They're very condescending to people maybe of a different religion and a different color. And I'm not that. I'm 100% different than that. But man, do I feel a little bit bad about myself? Is there a cognitive dissonance sometimes? There is. Because I don't always fight them. I don't always stand up. I mean, if there's 8 or 9 guys talking, I don't want to be the one to go, excuse me, let me educate you. Like, so I don't do that. I kind of, it's a PTSD response, right? I kind of fawn. I kind of just kind of go along with it. And do I feel good afterwards? Listen, I love making contact with old friends. But I don't like how I presented myself sometimes. So there's cognitive dissonance there. Let's talk more about cognitive dissonance in terms of you can think of one thing, but have contradictory beliefs about it. And this is probably the most difficult part about cognitive dissonance in a very difficult relationship. So here's an example. Let's say you're talking about yourself. You could say, I'm a really good person. Like, I do a lot of good things. I help people. This is what I do. You know, again, I'm overly responsible for other people. And yet, maybe because of the stress of the relationship, maybe you're drinking a little too much. Maybe you're staying out a little bit too long, and that's not you. You know, maybe you're just avoiding things. And you're thinking, well, that's not what a good person does, at least in your mind. I'm not judging, maybe that's you. And you're thinking, but a good person wouldn't do that, but I'm doing those things. So you have conflicting values about yourself again. So you have you, I'm a good person, but yet I'm doing bad things in order to survive. And so, again, cognitive dissonance. You can have cognitive dissonance about your partner. You can remember all the amazing, great things about your partner, what they've done, what they're doing now. But what about the part where they almost enjoy hurting you, being cruel, being malicious? It's hard to balance that, isn't it? Again, cognitive dissonance. Maybe your partner or somebody you know supports you, but they're also just as likely to sabotage you. It's hard to balance that. Maybe they compliment you sometimes. You're like, wow, this person really likes me. But they're also pretty quick to condemn you. Maybe they want to see the best for you. They probably do. But maybe something in them, their lack of self-esteem maybe, their fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, that when you do too good, they don't like that either. So now you have a person that wants to see you do well, but when you do well, they don't like you. So how do you deal with this? A lot of times parents are like this. A parent with no ego can love their children no matter what. But have you ever noticed sometimes, not saying for everybody, just saying if you're in this position, I'm going to validate it for you, that when you do really poorly and your life is kind of on the downslide, sometimes maybe a parent is there for you. Maybe they're not there because they want to help you all the time. Maybe they're there because they feel comfortable when you're down. But what happens when you do really well and you start making a lot of money? Maybe you get a degree of fame. Their ego can't handle it. Their self-esteem can't handle it. So then you start hearing words like, oh, it must be nice. You know, who did you know to get that job? You know, things like that. So that's also a possibility. So again, cognitive dissonance. It's hard to make decisions about people, especially when you are a very caring, agreeable person, because you see the good in people and you're weighing that up against the bad and you're like, this is really difficult. And you do that about yourself as well. So what's the overall thing that's going to happen here to you, possibly, if you don't watch yourself? I can do another show on how to deal with it and not take on the damage, but that's for another show. That's not today. Typically what's going to happen to you is you're going to have an incredible amount of anxiety. You're going to be depressed. You're going to have what we call a decrease in executive function. In other words, you're going to have trouble thinking because you're in a brain fog. Everything you do, there's always another side to it that could go the other way. You don't know which thing to do. The people around you are loving and hateful. They're good, they're bad. They're supportive, they're sabotaging. Very difficult to be in a situation like that when you're a caring person who's only trying to see the good. Unfortunately, evidence tells us that if you live in an environment like that, you will probably experience a lot more physical ailments and possibly diseases a lot sooner than what you should. And that's maybe one of the big takeaways for today's show, is that you are putting yourself under grave physical harm, even if you're not seeing it today. Some people do see it today because they're getting hit in the face, right? You know, I don't mean to laugh, I don't mean that. But that's obvious, you know, that's obvious to everybody. But what's not obvious is the cancer, it's the heart disease, it's the stress-related illnesses that build up in you, you know, trying to do this. And it's very, very difficult to deal with these things. Very difficult to remedy. I'm going to give you an example of somebody I talked to this week. Now again, we talked about cognitive dissonance. So here's their belief. Their belief is that a good person helps their parents. And their other belief is that a bad person only cares about themselves and leaves their parents to fend for themselves. So here's part of the story. So this person who believes that a good person helps their parents was paying for their mother's cell phone bill for a couple of years because they thought that their mother was in financial need. And the mother said she was in financial need. And so this continued. Well, after about 2 years or so, what came to light was that the person who was giving the money over a period of 2 years saved, you know, a couple of $100s, maybe more. But the mother saved thousands of dollars. So now what? If you're the daughter here and you believe that good people help their parents, but yet the parent didn't need the help and knew that and was still taking the money from the child, what does the child do? I can't tell anybody what to do, right? Like everybody has to think for themselves. But it's a difficult situation. Do you cut the mother off? Because if you have a deep-hearted, deep-seated belief that good people help their parents, and your parent doesn't need help and they've been kind of screwing you the whole time, then we go back to the cognitive dissonance of, I love my mom because she's my mom, but she's really acting like a bad person. Difficult person, narcissistic person. So what do? Do you go no contact? Does a good person go no contact? Maybe yes for somebody, maybe no for somebody else. But that's what I'm saying. That this is a very difficult situation in psychology. And that's why as a therapist, I listen to people and I try to ask them the right questions so they can develop awareness for themselves to figure out what they need to do. I do not think a therapist or anybody on like bloggerology or YouTuberology with no educational background should be telling people what to do, because I see this all the time. You can't tell people what to do, especially in such intimate type of things with families. It's very, very difficult to do, and I think it's a personal decision that everybody has to make. So I hope I gave you enough information about what could happen to you if you're in a long-term relationship that's very, very stressful and the person's difficult and probably won't change. So I think I'll do another show later on how to best handle it if you choose to stay in that relationship. Again, we're going to leave this open. I'm not going to tell you what this person did, but I can name 10 other stories. Sometimes people do stay in contact with their parents or brothers or sisters. Sometimes they don't. It's up to them. So I hope this show was valuable to you. If it was, put a like on it.
And comment if you want. I need more comments. I love comments. Even if it's negative, it's okay. I like that too. It makes me a stronger, better person, and it makes me more intelligent. And subscribe. Tell a friend. Thank you. I'll see you next time.